presumably to solidify the line of the kingdom. And meanwhile, Viserys is still sticking with Rhaenyra for no reason that you can really imagine, like his failure to just...
What? That's his daughter. And he made a promise to her. How would you say that that's no imaginable reason why he would stick with his daughter? He already made a promise to his daughter, and his wife died by giving birth. And he said, I should have been made you the heir. How is it that you're saying this right now? I don't understand this. All right, man, Torture Talk. Like, share, subscribe to the page. So today I'm going to be talking about Ben Shapiro thoughts on House of the Dragon season 1 and all the things that he got wrong. So I'm going to be going through his assessment and pointing out all the things that he got wrong. So,
alrighty, folks, we're here to recap season 1 of Game of Thrones House of the Dragon. This video is sponsored by Established Titles, because you have to establish your title. Okay, so let's talk about Game of Thrones House of the Dragon. Enjoyable. First of all, let's get to the obvious. Yes, it's filled with pornography. It's Game of Thrones. I mean, it's on HBO. HBO has a moral obligation, apparently, they believe, to show tits and ass, and so they just do that a lot.
All right, so let me stop him right there. It's not filled with pornography. It's not. I think there was only really one episode or two, maybe one significant episode where they had a whorehouse. Outside of that, there really wasn't too much tits and ass showing. They showed some sex scenes, but they really didn't show too much revealing. It wasn't like the first Game of Thrones.
Actually is almost wholly relegated to like 2 episodes. There's a lot of bloody childbirth. I don't know why the writers were super into bloody childbirth, but there's like 5 of them during the season.
All right, so let me stop him again. See, there's a reason why they had a lot of childbirths. The whole reason why it's bloody is because to show the horrors of a woman who can't really give birth, trying to give birth, and they're doing everything they can to make this person give birth. That's one. 2, the reason why they kept showing births is because you know he was looking for a male heir. You know that. Now, if you're saying that they were showing, you don't understand why they were showing. I mean, when is a childbirth or a child, whatever you want to call it at the time? When is that not bloody? Of course, it's going to be bloody.
Oh, that was weird. The upside of the show is that it's all political manipulation. So that's stuff that's fun to watch, right? You're watching all of these characters vie over power. That was always the best part of the original Game of Thrones. The touch of magic in the original Game of Thrones was, I thought, the weakest part of the show. Everything that was going on with the White Walkers in the North was the least interesting part of the show. The dragons were there, but they weren't really a major topic, except for Daenerys having one. Melisandre was there, but she actually had very little impact on the show itself.
Wait, what? Melisandre was the one that brought Jon Snow back. What are you talking about? She didn't have a major impact on the show? Melisandre? She was the one that in season 8, wasn't she the one that lit all the Dothraki torches? She didn't have a major impact. She was the one that that killed Ripley Baratheon, killed Stannis' brother, and was trying to make him the heir to the throne, the true king. What?
Was always really interesting was the battle between the houses, because it was essentially the War of the Roses. So here in this show, they really dispense with a lot of the magic, and it's just internecine warfare in the house. Well, I'm really into that. I like political dramas in which it's essentially a closed box. A lot of people are complaining the show's claustrophobic. It doesn't have the same sort of scope as the original Game of Thrones, and all of that's true, but it doesn't bother me too much. The biggest problem that I have with the show is the wild character inconsistencies. So to me, a lot of this is rooted in the decision to essentially split the season in half and then recast the season. So they start the story too early. Okay, the reality is that they really should start this story when everybody is an adult, because the gap between the characters and how they are from the beginning of the season to the end of the season is pretty wild. Like Rhaenyra at the beginning of the season is not who Rhaenyra is at the end of the season.
That's not true. That's not true. Now, if you want to say they significantly look different, yes. But here's the thing. This is what I think he's missing. And I think he's deliberately leaving this out. It's 10 years between the gap, right? So obviously people change. You're trying to make it seem like that these people was young and then they were old. No, over time things change. So even if you say that Allison changed from being young Allison to older Allison, the things that she's seen, the things she went through over time, and all the stuff that her dad told her and stuff like that, when people put in her head, and all the stuff that her father, what's the name's father, was still supporting her, and she already had children. Of course, people are gonna change. So within that 10 years, yes, they're gonna change. You're saying that's inconsistent. How's that inconsistent? That's not inconsistent. That's actually what happens in life.
Alicent at the beginning of the season is not who Alicent is at the end of the season.
Obviously, she's not. Of course, she's not the same person because it's 10 years later and she's been through a traumatic experience. So, of course, she's not the same person. I don't understand how you even arguing that. We know she's not the same person. Not at all. She's nowhere near the same person.
Daemon at the beginning of the season is not who Daemon is at the end of the season. And if you're going to put these chess pieces on the board.
All right, so look. So even with Daemon, right? You said Daemon isn't the same person. Again, these people grew. Things change. In this world, things change. Stuff happens. In 10 years, a lot of stuff can happen to people. Whether it's 10 or 6 or whatever. A lot of stuff can happen. So obviously, Daemon isn't going to be the same Daemon that he was. How is that inconsistent? I don't understand that.
And then move them around in conflict with one another and develop some sort of interest in the characters over the long term. They have to have a consistent character. And I suppose you can make the argument that because the show takes place over a long period of time and people change and all of this, that, that's not inaccurate about human nature, but that is a problem in the show. When you watch the original.
But how you defeating your own argument then? You're defeating your own argument. You're saying that okay, that happens, but it shouldn't happen in the show? How is that? How is it not? So you're telling me that, see, this is what would have had happened. If they didn't change, you would have said, well, over 10 years, how is this person still the same person? That's what you would have said. You would have literally said that. Now you're saying, oh, well, since it's over 10 years and that does happen in real life, but since it's in Game of Thrones, it don't supposed to happen that way. What?
Game of Thrones. Joffrey is Joffrey. There's no point at which
but Joffrey didn't jump from Joffrey didn't jump a 10-year jump. Obviously, Joffrey would have been a totally different character. They went from when Joffrey was maybe 14, 15, 16, or 12, 13, 14, 15. He was always the same character because they went year by year by year. This one is a time jump, dog. It's not the same. That's not the same. You can't compare Joffrey to Rhaenyra. It's not the same.
Was a generous young man who turned into the world's worst human being. He was just bad. Ned Stark was always virtue-laden but thick, right? Like, their characters were who they were. Robb was always, brave, bold young prince who's naive about the world. Like, you could name who they were in sort of one sentence. The big problem.
But you're comparing those characters who they literally went from when they were kids all the way up. Now I get what you're saying, because they wasn't kids, because Robb Stark wasn't a kid. Only one that they all was still actually around the same age. I think Game of Thrones took place. When it took place, it wasn't over a 10-year time period. Maybe it was over 2 or 3 years. So all this stuff happened within 2 or 3 years or 4 years or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't over 10 years.
House of the Dragon is that, except for Viserys, who's pretty consistent and played by Paddy Considine, who actually gives the best performance in the show, everybody else is all over the place.
All right, I see what you're doing. You are going off of because you like Patty Constantine so much that you're saying everybody else is all over the place because they didn't change his character significantly. He just basically went through stages of death. I see what you're doing.
So let's start with Daemon Targaryen. And so Matt Smith is magnetic on screen. He's terrific in the show. Also, Daemon Targaryen's character makes no sense. So he starts off, he's happy that Viserys has a boy who dies and that his wife dies.
They never specified that. He never specified that. They never said that he was happy that his boy died. He never even admitted that. He never admitted that. They never showed him say, praises to the king for the day. He never said that. How are you even saying that he was happy about his brother's son dying? I don't think that Daemon is that malicious towards his brother. Maybe other people, but you see how he reacted when Corlys tried to come at his brother. He's not a malicious person towards his family. No, you're wrong about that.
Because it presumably makes him heir to the throne. So he wants the power. It's the thing that he wants the most of all. He wants the power. He goes and he fights a war.
Daemon doesn't want the power. What are you talking about? He doesn't want the power to the throne. He don't. Daemon is just who he is. He's a conflicted person. He wants his brother's attention. That's what he wants. He wants to be noticed by his brother. He don't care about the throne. I'm sure he could have did something to get it if he wanted to. At this point, I don't think I'm not going to say he don't care about the throne. I'm going to say that the throne for Daemon wasn't at his highest priority. Let's put it that way. You know what I'm saying? Let's put it that way.
Specifically, in order to gain the power. And then when he comes back, he doesn't challenge his brother in any way. He sort of bends the knee to his brother. So he has this love.
Because he wants to prove to his brother that he is worthy. That's it. It's not that he wants to bend the knee. No, he didn't have to do that. He wanted to show his brother, like, listen, I can do stuff too. This is what I could do. The older brother, the younger brother wanted to prove to the older brother. So Michael Jordan, when he used to play ball, he said he felt as though he could beat anybody if he beat his brother. And the day he beat his brother, he felt like he was the greatest basketball player of all time. So what you're saying is it doesn't really make sense for you to say that his character's all over the place. I don't understand that.
Hate relationship with his brother, but he wants to be king, but he doesn't want to be king, but he wants to have the power, but he doesn't want to have the power. And him sort of bending the knee to his niece is particularly weird because he's way older.
Oh my God. You saying he's bending the knee to his niece, right? Here's the thing. For you to say it's weird, we beyond that point now. We're beyond that point. So if you're saying it's weird, then obviously you really not into Game of Thrones like that, because you know that this type of stuff goes on in this world. So you can't say this is weird because you know it goes on in the world. You know what I'm saying? That's one. Two, when did he bend the knee to his niece? Did he when they became when Viserys made her the heir or to heir to the throne? The next heir, that's when he bend the knee? Is that what you're saying? Or did he bend the knee when they got married? What are you saying? I don't understand what you mean by bend the knee. When did he bend the knee to her? At what period? And if he did bend the knee, shouldn't he have did that? Shouldn't he had to? He bent the knee to his brother. He obviously had to because his brother was king. So if she becomes the queen, I mean, don't he have to bend the knee to her? If he feels as though, what is he supposed to do? Go to war with her? Like, what are you saying?
And she is, and he thinks of himself as a war fighter, whereas Rhaenyra demonstrates very few qualities up until she becomes queen that actually make her worthy of being queen, other than she's the daughter of her father. In fact, she's wildly unlikable. Young Rhaenyra is a hormonal teenager who refuses to abide by the duties of her job. Viserys keeps saying, like, there's what you want to do and there's what you need to do, and these are not the same thing. And she's like, well, I want to do what I want to do. And this means I'm going to go with my uncle to a brothel and get felt.
Wait, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? All right, look. You're making it seem like you're really butchering this show, bro. You're butchering this show. It wasn't that simple. You're making it seem like, oh, she was just this problematic person. She wasn't. She did some things that were, I would say, that's questionable, but that is the compliment of the good writing. They made her, people like her even though she was doing some questionable things. That's the whole idea of it. Now she goes to with her uncle to a brothel because you know and I know and everybody else knows she was in love with her uncle. That's what it was. It's just not pretend here. So she's gonna do whatever he said because that's what it is. But that wasn't the reason why she went. He didn't bring her there, bring her down to the brothel because of that. He brought her down to Flea Bottom because he wanted her to see what life was like on the ground. So if she does become the queen, she has to become a better person, or she has to think differently because everybody loves him down there, even though they know he's the prince. So he wanted to show her something. What are you talking about?
By him, and it means that I'm gonna have sex with my Knight's Guard, dude. This is not the behavior that you want.
What? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Listen. We all know why she had sex with Christian Cole. Because she was horny. But you making it seem like that's what she were doing at that time. Now, maybe later on she did. And maybe Damon did open that sexual tension up to her. But the way you making it seem like she just was out there just doing whatever. Like, no. She did a lot of stuff, and she had a lot of good ideas at the time. She was the one that told him that they should go to the Stepstone. She had a lot of good ideas. You're just glossing over her like, oh, well, she didn't really do nothing. Like, what?
From your queen. Like, if you're going to name all the characteristics you want in a ruler, she embodied virtually none of them. And then by the end of the show, just stick with Rhaenyra for a second. By the end of the show, suddenly Rhaenyra is really good at queening, right? Rhaenyra is given the crown, and despite the fact that she has dramatically undermined her own credibility, she's amazing at it, right? So she...
Wait a minute, Ben. Wait a minute. First of all, you're still leaving out the fact that she was doing all this within 10 years. So you can't say that, oh, because the time jump happened. Now, again, we can agree that maybe they should have, expound on that a little bit more. But I will kind of say this. If we're going to say they told us in our heads that we're supposed to use our imagination a little more, because obviously if they did a 10-year time jump, we're supposed to believe that these characters were pushed in this direction that they were going in anyway. So if the last episode of episode 5, where she was going in the direction of being someone who was let's say someone who could be a good queen, that's the whole idea of it. You're trying to make it seem like, oh, well, they just dropped it on us like it's nothing.
Marries her husband, Valerian, who is gay, and then she has a bunch of kids, not just like one kid with a white dude named Strong. She has like 3 kids with that dude. This is one of the problems, by the way, with casting the Valerians as black, is it destroys all semblance of plausible deniability for Rhaenyra, right? There's no way she can claim, well, it really is legit. Like, everyone can see the kid's not legit. Everybody can see that the kid...
Again, that's a wrong argument to make too, because Corliss kids look mixed, right? Now, if you want to say, oh, because she had kids, these white guys, that's the whole point of it. These things don't supposed to be said. She's supposed to have been trustworthy. That's the whole thing. So this is the whole reason why we got to this point where the girl's son basically says, Allison's son basically says everybody knows it. So people just was denying it. It wasn't that they totally didn't listen because it was a black actor. No. People were just denying it because they were afraid that they'll get their fucking tongue cut out. What are you talking about?
Is a Strong. Like, what, you think everyone around you is unbelievably stupid? Like, the arrogance that it would take to sire a child of the color that is not your husband's and then claim them as legitimate heir is really astonishing, right? And puts Viserys in a really bad position. So Rhaenyra is constantly making bad decision after bad decision up until the point she becomes queen. And then she becomes queen, and suddenly she's amazing at this. Suddenly she's actually...
Who says she's amazing at being a queen? She was wrong on a bunch of stuff. What are you talking about? They never specified that she was amazing being a queen. They never specified. She never done anything for her to be considered an amazing queen. That's just your personal a personal thing. They never said anything like that, ever. They never said anything about her being this amazing queen. Never. She's been the same character when she was older until she became the queen. It was no different. She was doing the same shit. What are you saying? I don't understand it. Now, as far as you saying the her having kids with the Valerian, okay, yeah. But again, they all knew this. They all knew this. It's the same thing that happened. But see, this is what makes me mad. Make me mad. But this is what I'm saying about Ben Shapiro, right? He makes up this logic when it suits him, right? Because you ain't have a problem. You ain't have a problem with the Baratheons and the Lannisters, where Ned Stark found out that Jaime and Cersei was having incest and having these children. They had totally different hair colors. Totally different. And they knew this. But you say because this person is black or because it's a black character, they all knew it. It's the point. They knew that too in Game of Thrones. They knew it, but they ignored it because they knew that the consequences of it. That's the thing. Viserys didn't want to hear it. And Viserys even explained that stuff like that could happen. He even acknowledged it and explained it.
Thinking seriously about how do I hold the realm together. She takes her duty incredibly seriously. There have been very few indicators that this is who Rhaenyra is the entire show. So that gap in time is really a problem. If you saw the transition over a small gap in time where maybe her father's death changes her, right? Maybe they start the season when she's an adult and she is irresponsible, right? She married her uncle. By the way, they make some moves in the show deliberately in order to make Rhaenyra not totally unlikable that are not in the book. So for example, her husband gets dispatched with alacrity, my understanding is, in the book. In this one, they sort of exile him with his gay lover, which 100% would not happen in an ancient kingdom.
All right, so let me stop you right there. All right. So, look, that part wasn't in the books. They didn't exile him. But you know how it is online when people spoil stuff. And they had you believing that they killed him until the end. So don't sit here and say, oh, well, they were supposed to kill him off because they were supposed to follow the books. You know how trolls go. They tell spoilers all day. That's what they do. Now, as far as what's the name, you don't know if that's the case. You don't know. But obviously, it's not that they wanted to make her likable. She's already likable. What did Rhaenyra do? What did Rhaenyra do that you could say that is so outlandish as far as what Alicent did? As if you could compare the things that Alicent did. What did she do? Who did she have killed? What did she do? She didn't do anything for you to say. Now I'm just thinking, did Rhaenyra have anybody killed or anything done to anyone? The only thing she did was sleep with a guy and made him had him in his had Christian Cole in his feelings. That's it. She ain't do nothing that was super crazy. Like Alicent. The shit that Alicent did, come on, bro. Come on.
Sorry, not a real thing. And also, why would Daemon go along with that? Daemon's one of those brutal characters in the show. And he's like, no, we must allow this gay couple to escape to another country.
All right. Now, okay. You're saying that Daemon is wild inconsistent. But now you're saying that why would he let that go? Why would he let it go along with it? If he's wild inconsistent, why does it matter? That's what you're saying. You would say, well, he is wild inconsistent. That's what they do. Like, you're making it seem like he's supposed to not be inconsistent about that, but everything else he can be wild inconsistent about. That's the character. Like, but when it comes to this, he's supposed to make sure that happens. Like, no.
Like, very, very weird move. The transition in Rhaenyra makes no sense. This is paralleled by the transition in Alicent. So Alicent, played as a young woman by Emily Carey in a very good performance, and then Olivia Cook, who also gives a good performance. But they're two separate characters. Okay, so Emily Carey, when she is young, is virtue-driven, duty-bound, right? She's supposed to contrast with Rhaenyra, who's headstrong and emotion-bound. And Emily is doing exactly what her dad says, which makes her, by the way, a better regent in many ways than Rhaenyra would be. Rhaenyra would be unpredictable. She would do volatile things. Alicent is going to do what she thinks is best for the realm. And so she goes to Viserys.
That's not true either. They never specified what Rhaenyra would do. That's not true. What do you mean that Alicent would do what's best for the realm? No, Alicent cared about Alicent. That's it. She cared about Alicent. She didn't care about the realm. She cared about her and her family's legacy, but mostly her. Wasn't the realm, no. And they never specified what Rhaenyra would do. You don't know that. You don't know that whether Rhaenyra would have been a sorry queen or not. And on top of that, Alicent did a lot of shady stuff too. So what are you saying? She didn't do anything shady? She didn't have Lawrence Strong and his father, or the two father and son killed? She didn't push towards that, even though she did say she didn't. Come on, bro. She knew what was going on.
And she's the one who has to take on all the duties. I mean, she's like a kid. She's 16, 17 years old, and she's forced.
And that, again, is the reason why Rhaenyra and her have an issue. How do you not see that? They have an issue because this girl, who was her best friend, married her father. How do you not think that that's not going to affect someone's going forward? How? I don't understand it. And then on top of that, she ends up having a male heir. So you don't think that affected her at all? Even within the 10-year time period, that never affected her.
Into an arranged marriage with this 45-year-old king, who's kind of gross. And then she's having babies.
All right, so you look, come on, Ben. I don't really want to cut this review off. I don't want to cut this review off. Because you're trying to take a logical standpoint in a fantasy novel, bro. I really don't want to turn this off. Because that's exactly what you're doing right now. You're basically taking this and you're trying to spin it into something that, oh, well, that's really nasty or that's really gross. Like, listen, bro, this is what was written. And you can't champion the fact that they wouldn't have let a gay man live back then, but then say that this is gross. Like, come on, bro. It's all a part of a fantasy novel. That's it.
Presumably to solidify the line of the kingdom. And meanwhile, Viserys is still sticking with Rhaenyra for no reason that you can really imagine. Like his failure to just...
What? That's his daughter. And he made a promise to her. How would you say that that's no imaginable reason why he would stick with his daughter? He already made a promise to his daughter, and his wife died by giving birth. And he said, I should have been made you the heir. How is it that you're saying this right now? I don't understand this.
Decrown Rhaenyra and put it on Aegon in the first place is very weird. It's very strange. If Viserys' thing is I want to maintain the kingdom, the thing he ought to do is that, right? But he doesn't do that. Instead, he sticks with Rhaenyra, which again, weird decision by Viserys. But
how's that a weird decision? How? He made a promise to her. So he should break his promise and give Viserys the crown? How is that a weird decision? I don't understand how you would think that that's a weird decision. I don't understand that. That's what, if he made a promise to her, that's what he has to keep. That's what made him who he was. He was an honorable man. He was on his deathbed and he walked up to the throne and defended his daughter. You know this.
Get back to Alicent. She is innocent. She is forced into this position by her dad. By the time we get to the second half of the show, she has turned into one of the worst characters in the show. Now she is scheming and conniving.
She's not scheming and conniving. Not at that level, because obviously she would have known what they were doing. But no, you're wrong. You're wrong about that. No. The reason why she got changed from who she was, the reason why she changed from who she was all the way up until now is because of Viserys, and because Viserys kept pushing for his, kept saying Rhaenyra and the things that happened and the kids that happened and all this stuff. She became a bitter older woman about things, and she felt like she didn't have a voice. You're saying it like she was totally innocent. No, she wasn't. She wasn't totally innocent. And on top of that, she knew that Christian Cole broke his vow and she did nothing. So what are you saying? She been knew that before she was older.
And terrible. And she's doing all of this, presumably in order to crown her kids, in order to preserve their lives, not because she wants to unify the kingdom or thinks that that's a good idea, but because she's afraid that Rhaenyra is going to kill all of her kids, but she knows Rhaenyra. In fact, she appeals to Rhaenyra's sense of justice at the end of the show. So again, none of...
Wait a minute. Okay, so now you're confusing me. Because first of all, a few minutes ago, you said something totally different. You're saying that she was an upstanding person who should be this person. Now you're saying that she's confused. Obviously, that's what happens when she went on in life. That 10-year gap, that happens in that 10 years. That's what made her who she is.
That makes a whole hell of a lot. And she becomes incredibly corrupt. By the end of the show, she's like sitting there and giving foot fetish pleasure to Larys Strong. Right? Like, none of that makes any sense. So she goes,
How's that not make sense? How's that not make sense? He has a fucked up foot. Now let's just keep it real. He has a fucked up foot. And his head, obviously, what they're trying to convey to us is the payment instead of sex. The payment would be he has a foot fetish. How is that weird or that stupid? The man has a fucked up foot, and he probably dreams about or fantasizes about having nice feet. How is that? I don't understand how you would take that as something crazy. It ain't like his foots were fine. Like, no, that's obviously that's the reason why. So she wasn't going to exchange sexual favors with him. I don't understand why you would think that that's weird.
from a courageous and dutiful person standing up for her family and maybe for the good of the realm to a conniving, scheming person, all of whose children are terrible, by the way. Right? All of her kids are awful. For some reason, Rhaenyra ended up with like amazing kids, and Alicent ended up with horrible kids, which is weird because Alicent seems to be much more involved with her kids than Rhaenyra is. But
what? What are you talking about? First of all, Alicent is not more in tune with her kids. No way, shape, or form. She grabbing one of them by the face. She grabbed her one kid by the face and screamed in his face. What are you talking about? You're saying that all the whole thing with Rhaenyra and her kids is she had a pleasant discussion or whatever, however you want to say it. She talked really good to her kids. She was a better mother than Alicent. Completely better. There's no comparison. No way in the world you can tell me that this woman is Alicent was a better parent to her kids. What? Her daughter hates her. Her son doesn't even like her. And the other son, he's a rapist. How is it that you're saying that she's a better mother to her kids? What?
Never mind you that. Okay, then you get to the Valyrians. The real problem with the Valyrians is that Rhaenys obviously should be the queen. She has the best qualities. She actually thinks strategically. She knows what she is doing. And maybe that's one of the points of the show is that Viserys never should have been the king, that Rhaenys should have been.
Yeah, so how are you using that in the argument? That's a part of the show. How can you use that as an argument? That's a part of the show. The show is what it is. You can't say, well, she should be the queen. Then it wouldn't be no show. That's the whole reason. The whole reason is she got looked over because he was a man. And they had an issue. They have an issue with females being in. She even spoke about this the whole time when she talked to Rhaenyra. She told her, like, listen, that's why they call her the queen that never was. Like, what? How are you making that into an argument? I don't understand that. This is what the show is.
The queen in the first place. Again, she's constantly making decisions that are convenient for the writers. So at the very end of episode 9, for example, she like bursts through the floor with her dragon, killing probably 1,000 commoners, but doesn't just fry the royal family and end the war. Why? She said, well,
okay, so why should she had did that? What sense would that had made? Then we wouldn't have a show. Like, I understand what you're saying, but you got to think about it from this point of view. She said it wasn't her war to end. She said that. So if she didn't say that, then I mean, you could be on the same side and we can agree. But she said that. It wasn't my war to end. It's not my war to end. So what, she would have fried them? Then what? Took the crown and put the crown on and said she's the queen? Then she would have been at war. Her husband would have been at war. Like, what are you saying? I don't understand that. Why would she have did that? Why?
It's not my war to start. Well, it's your war to end, though. There are a few things you could do here. One thing that you could do, considering that you actually do have a claim to the throne and you have a giant-ass dragon and you're the only person in the entire kingdom, apparently, who knows that the crown has now been stolen, you could theoretically fry the Alicent side of the royal.
That's not true either. She's not the only person know that the crown was stolen. Because the boy Eric went to Rhaenyra with the other crown. How is it that she not know? What are you talking about? He was the one that went to her first. Or he got there. I think he got there before her. I'm not sure about that. But he was the reason he came there. Well, no, he came there after her. But he knew. What do you mean she's the only one? So she would have burnt them up. And then what? And I understand Daemon did ask her why she did that, and she explained why.
Family. And then you could actually go to your husband and start a war for the crown yourself.
Why would she have did that? I don't understand. So let me get this right. You would have killed them and then went to war with Rhaenyra with your one dragon. And they have, I think they have 7. They have 7 dragons. She has 1. 1. So they would have went to war, and you're not even taking into account that Daemon kids is her grandkids. So she would have went to war and killed her 2 granddaughters that she loves so much that she believes should be the next in line. He would have went and killed. What are you talking about?
And you fly to Rhaenyra and pledge your loyalty to what end exactly?
She never pledged her loyalty to her. She never did. She never pledged her loyalty. She just basically said, I'm just telling you that they're coming for you. She never pledged her loyalty. Actually, even in the part when they crowned her, she never bent the knee. So she never pledged her loyalty. What are you talking about?
On behalf of grandkids who actually have no relationship with you genetically, it's a very strange.
What? Oh my God, bro! You're just saying anything at this point. You're saying anything. Her grandkids don't have no genetically is not connected to her. She had a baby with her husband. Her husband's daughter, or her daughter, had a baby with Daemon. 2. How is it that how is she not connected genetically? What are you talking about?
All of this is very strange. Same thing with Lord Corlys, right, who starts off the show as a very ambitious guy who's interested maybe in the crown himself and starts a war with Daemon in order to wrest control away from Viserys in some ways. And by the end of the show, he's bending the knee to Rhaenyra.
That's not why they started the war. They didn't start the war. They didn't start the war of the Stepstones. No, they didn't do that. No, he didn't want to start a war. He was saying that his ships can't get through because these people are fucking their shit up. That's what he was saying. He didn't go and start a war just to start a war. No, these pirates and the crab feeder and all of them was fucking shit up for them. That's what happened. Had nothing to do with whether he wanted to go to war or not. What?
Again, for no apparent reason, considering that, as is pointed out, both Corlys and Rhaenys think that Rhaenyra killed one of their sons and like burned his body. Okay, meanwhile, I know that we're supposed to hate Kristen Cole because Kristen Cole is emotional and bad and all of this, but Kristen Cole is pretty badly abused by Rhaenyra. I know that we're
What? So let me get this right. Because Kristen Cole wanted to, first of all, he could have turned Rhaenyra down. Now in the books he did, but he could have turned Rhaenyra down. That's on him. He removed his cloak, whatever, and he fucked Rhaenyra, right? Okay. Then what happened? He wanted to be in a relationship and wanted to run away with Rhaenyra. He wanted to run away. You know he would have been killed and she would have been killed when they was found. So what is your argument to say that he was abused by her? The most logical thing for him to do, and what she was saying was, hey, listen, we can still fool around, but I can't run away with you. What does it look like, the queen to be running away with some guy from the knights, from the king's guard? How does that make sense?
Glossing over this because Rhaenyra is supposed to be the heroine of the piece. Criston Cole is used the way he says he is used, and we're supposed to believe that because he's devoted to virtue, this means that he is bad. But
he's not devoted to virtue because he broke his vows. How is he devoted? He's not. He was even willing to sacrifice and go along because he beat somebody to death. You just totally left that part out. He killed a man, beat him to death, and then he killed another man. He killed He killed a couple of people. How is it? How I don't understand how he's the innocent one in this.
Sort of the crowd here and say that early on, Criston Cole is not the problem. Rhaenyra is the problem. Later on, of course, he becomes the problem. Him, basically pointing out that Rhaenyra is terrible. That's true for 95% of the show, except for the last.
But he's terrible too. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. He's terrible too. He killed a person at a fucking party in front of everyone. How are you saying that this guy, Rhaenyra, never did anything like that? He killed a man in front of everybody and never suffered any consequences for it. He killed a man on a small council and never suffered any consequences for it. How is it that you're saying that this guy is much better as a person than Rhaenyra because what? He was a soldier? That's it? But he did shit just like her. How is he a much better person than her? Or 90% of the time she was the evil one? How? What did she do that was so evil besides sleep with him and make him break his vows? And she didn't make him do it because he could have said no.
5% of the show. Otto Hightower begins the show as sort of the manipulative hand, and the idea is that he wants power for himself, but that originally is not his motivation. Originally, his motivation is the kingdom is going to split apart if you name a girl. And so we need a son. And then he gets a son, and he promotes the son. By the end, it's like, I just want power myself. When is that transition?
Wait, that's not what are you talking about? That's not what it is. No. Otto Hightower always wanted his family to be in the position of power. He didn't want his son to be on the no. He wanted Alicent to after what's the name died, after his wife died, he wanted Alicent to basically comfort the king and maybe they'll get together. And it worked. What are you talking about? How are you saying that he wanted a son and he wanted a son? What? His son had nothing to do. His son has nothing to do with it. His son wasn't going to be married to Rhaenyra. His son had nothing to do with it.
Exactly happened for Otto. You don't really see it. This is just one of the big problems of the show, is that the lack of character consistency means that it's very hard to root hard for anyone.
Well, obviously, he left and he was gone until he came back. He told her what was going to happen. Traditionally, that's what would have happened. You're saying that it's a lack of inconsistency. How? He was gone. He left. I think he was gone for more than 10 years. After Alicent found out, after what's the name left or whatever, when Viserys took the hand off of him and he exiled him or whatever he told him to leave, he was gone. What are you talking about?
You got Daemon, who's all over the place. You got Rhaenyra, who's all over the place. You've got Alicent, who's all over the place. The only one who's consistent is Viserys, just because he seems to be wobbly the whole time. So this is a problem. Okay, so finally, you get to the end of the show, and Aemond who has been sort of prepping for the kingship, right? They make it clear he's been studying philosophy and he's been studying history, and he is a badass because he's claimed a dragon of his own without anybody's permission.
But he's not in line. He's not the next in line. They didn't prep him for none of this. What are you talking? What episode did they ever said that they prepped him to be the king? There's no episode that says that. What are you talking about?
Plus, he has a cool pirate patch and everything. He shows up at the Baratheon in order to woo the Baratheons for the war. Lucerys shows up, the son of Rhaenyra. And Lucerys is supposed to woo the Baratheons. And Aemond is pissed because he's still missing his eye. He taunts Lucerys. And
he wasn't there to woo the Baratheons. No. He wasn't there for that. He came there because they wanted to, his mother told him to go and talk to them. He wasn't trying to, oh, well, listen, this is what we know. So whether you want to say he wooed them or not, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that term. I don't agree with that either one was trying to do that. I don't agree with that. I think that, I just don't agree with that.
He chased him out of the hall and he chased him down in the dragon. Okay, there's a major mistake that's made in this particular scene. And it's not indicated, my understanding is in the book. And the major mistake that is made here is that of all the youngsters, it seems that the only two who are qualified to be king at all, just in terms of personality, are Jacaerys and Aemond. Right? Aegon, the second, is garbage and running away from his job, and which means that he will be dispatched, I would imagine, right quickly next season.
Wait a minute. No, you did. You're wrong. You're wrong. The other one is older. The taller one, he got taller, but he's not older. He's the youngest one. He's I think it's Aegon, then Aemon. It's not Aemon, then Aegon. You're wrong. No. And this one, he's the youngest out of the two. So, I don't know where you're getting that from.
Jacaerys has really no claim to the throne, considering that he's illegitimate, and neither does Jacaerys. Aemond actually has a claim to the throne. He also happens to have been studying. He's a good warrior. We know that he's very clever. We know that he actually has the ability to hold himself back. He's not a profligate. And so suddenly in this last scene, he's played as wildly angry. What he should be is extraordinarily calculating.
First of all, he's not played as wildly angry. He's always been that way. What are you talking about? This character always been the same way. Now you're talking about consistency. He's always been that way from even when he was younger all the way up to now. He's always been that way.
He should be thinking, okay, well, if this thing gets settled, then my claim to the throne is going to be essentially in question forever. What I need is a pathway to the throne. And the way I'm going to get a pathway to the throne is maybe a war. Because I'm not getting...
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What was you watching, bro? What was you watching? You all over the place with this. What are you talking about? You're interjecting your personal things in this, what should have happened, and you're trying to make an assessment of it. No, we want to just know what happened in the show. You're saying what he should have did was this. Like, no, we don't want to know what he should have did in your version of House of the Dragon. We want to know what he should have did in the version of House of the Dragon. And that's what happened.
Pathway to the throne in the other way, so maybe I need a war here. And so I'm going to lead off this war by killing this kid who took my eye years and years and years ago. And so he should coldly and in calculating fashion chase down Lucerys and kill him. You should be hating Aemond, but you should also be sort of admiring the fact that he's coldly calculating. Instead, you get this weird dynamic where in the very last scene, the dragons get in a fight, but both riders don't actually want to be in the fight, right? Where Lucerys is trying to stop his dragon from attacking the other dragon. And he's like, no, but he's bad at controlling the dragon, so the dragon shoots the other dragon with fire.
All right, look. All right, see, this is how I know that I think you've been falling asleep on a couple episodes. You wasn't paying attention. First of all, Viserys said that the dragons have a mind of their own. They can't be controlled. When they feel as though they're in danger, they take over and they do whatever they feel as though they do. It's not that you can control these dragons and make them do exactly what you make them do. It's the same reason why when the female asked, I can't remember her name, but when she asked the dragon to burn her to death, she had to say it a couple of times. because they don't necessarily listen all the time. So if one dragon feels as though he's getting attacked or was attacked, you don't expect that dragon to do something about it. And obviously, let me let you finish.
The giant ass dragon that Aemon is riding is like chomp and just eats small dragon along with Lucerys. And Aemon is like, oh no, what have I? Oh no. You're like, why though? That's totally out of character. Suddenly he has like conflicting feelings about killing members of the family. Since when?
Wait a minute, no. Obviously, he wasn't trying to kill him. You know he wasn't trying to kill him. He was just trying to scare him. And he even told the dragon in the same scene, no, don't do it. No. He kept saying that. So you're sitting here trying to make it seem like that he went along with it because that's what it was. No. What?
Confusing. Bottom line for the first season of House of the Dragon, we need clearer characterization. We need to know who we are rooting for. We need to know why they've developed in the way that they have. Many of the problems here, as I say, could have been avoided by simply starting the season with the second half of the season. So you actually learn to be interested in the backstories of these characters. Like, it'd be cool to find out the revelation that Daemon once had designs on the throne. It'd be cool to find out that Aemon's eye was taken by Lucerys. Not that you watch them do the Six Kids, but like that's why they hate each other. It would be cool to find all this out in the context of almost a stage play, which is really what the first season is. Instead, because of that divide in the season, you kind of start to identify with these characters, and then they shift forward 10 years in time. They recast half the cast, and they change the characters of half the cast. And they make a bunch of kind of simple, stupid writing choices that get them out of trouble in one area, only to create trouble in another area. Rhaenys not blowing up the entire Alicent Hightower side of the family. And these are just bad writing decisions and sloppy writing in order to get them out of a problem, which is, what do? Oh, we'll have her bust through with the dragon. Why? I don't know. It'd be cool. It's hard to get over the chasm in the internal logic of the show. In fact, this season seems to be written more like Game of Thrones Season 5 than Game of Thrones Season 1. And Game of Thrones Season 1 is very tightly written because it was all plotted out by George R.R. Martin. But this season seems to be plotted out by the TV writers, and this means that they rely on a bunch of kind of silly tropes to get by. Overall, out of 5 swords, I will give Game of Thrones House of the Dragon Season 1 3.5 swords. Could have been 5, it wasn't.
All right, man. All right. That was pretty interesting. For you to sit there and say that they made these silly writing choices, but you only specified really one that you think was a silly writing choice. Like, oh, why didn't she just burn them up? There's a reason why she didn't do that, and she explained that. Now I could see if let's say, for instance, she felt as though that Rhaenyra, if Rhaenyra was standing up there and she felt as though that her son was killed by Rhaenyra, which she still do, don't you think she would have burned them up then if that was Rhaenyra and Daemon and all them, knowing that they had both of her children killed or 2 of her children were killed? So you can't really say that, oh well, she could have ended the war right there. Why would she end the war for somebody she thought that killed her kids anyway? That doesn't make sense. She gonna end a war for someone who she thought killed her children? Does that make any sense? I don't understand it. Anyway, that's the video. Torture Talk. You know what it is. Like, share, subscribe to the page. Hey, man, that was a good one, man. That was longer than I thought, but it was a good one.